everyone. We are so excited and want to welcome you to today's podcast here at Rhema Seed TV. I'm your host, Don Boyer.
And I'm Melinda Boyer.
And we are so excited to spend this time with you. You know, we have talked about a lot of subjects on our podcast, and today is going to be no different. I mean, you're going to have to want to put on your scuba gear, right? Your goggles and your fins, because we are going to deep dive in some areas that have brought a lot of problems and confusion, not only to Christians, but non-Christians.
Yes.
And that's the subject of quantum physics.
Well, quantum physics and energy.
Correct.
Yeah.
You know, we did a film called Beyond Physical Matter.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, if you have not watched that film, you want to go to Amazon Prime and watch it, because it will give you an in-depth understanding of the ministry of Jesus, which we're going to talk about how he operated into quantum physics. That's on Amazon Prime.
And you know, it's interesting because in the Bible, there is no indication of quantum, right? Or quantum physics or quantum entanglement or energy, right? But I think everything Jesus did was quantum and energy.
And when we start using the vernacular of words, semantics of quantum physics, quantum entanglement, epigenetics, all these are scientific terms that really just bring enlightenment to the Bible.
Yeah.
So when Jesus said, "The words that I speak to you, they are spirit and they are life," what that means is the Bible is a book that's alive.
Yeah.
When we consume it, when we read it, it not only impacts our physical body, but all the way down to our cells and our DNA.
Well, it brings you enlightenment.
Right. You know, in the Psalm it says, his word is a lamp unto our feet and a light to our pathway.
Right.
So when we look at God's word, it is a book of light, L-I-G-H-T, but it's also a book of life, L-I-F-E. In the beginning, where God said, "Let there be light," and light was, we're now understanding the area of what that meant. And we explain it in words scientifically about quantum physics. Now, the ancients have spoken about that, the inner world, the outer world, the invisible world, the physical world, and trying to explain, even the prophets of the Old Testament, even New Testament Christians, try to grasp their mind around this area of the Bible, its spirituality, and sometimes they get uncomfortable when you start talking about the science of the Bible. But if we go back and let's just take a look at the life and ministry of Jesus, we know that he said that the works that I do,
Right.
you're going to be able to do too. And greater ones are you going to be able to do. Now, that is from a natural standpoint, mine. That's a pretty hard act to follow, because Lazarus was dead for a few days.
Yeah.
Right? And even Martha said, you don't want to move that stone because his body's already decomposed. So if we're supposed to do that at greater things, that's a tough act to follow.
Right. But it says some biblical ideas, such as with God, all things are possible.
Exactly.
Right?
Right. So what does that mean? That means exactly what it says.
Right.
All things are possible. Now, the reason why that's true is because physical matter is nothing more than energy and frequency and vibration.
You know, it makes me think about Beyond Physical Life. We just did this movie, Beyond Physical Life, with Danny Brinkley, and who was physically dead for 28 minutes. And it was really interesting because he said that when he went over, it was energy. It was the energy that he felt, not so much the speaking, right? But he felt energy from people. So why don't people understand that God is energy? Is he not?
I would say when people use the terminology that God is energy, two things happen. Number one, Christians get mad. That's the first thing that happens. Okay. It rattles their people. But the people that are speaking it and saying that God is energy are saying it from a platform on many occasions because they had never had a relationship with God in their heart. They've never experienced that relationship with Jesus Christ coming into their heart.
And we just talked about
And
that.
we just talked about that. So their understanding of God is from the head, from science. And so they relate that to God as being energy. Now, that is kind of like a oxymoron. Mean it's true, but not in the context.
Like the quantum entanglement?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Something like that. So when we talk about quantum physics, it is scientific terms to try to explain the awesomeness and the nature of God, which is spirit
Mm-hmm.
and the spiritual realm. Whereas Christians sometimes have a hard time understanding that. But let's go back and dialogue a little bit about the ministry of Jesus. First of all, how did he walk on water?
Yeah.
Now, Chris Angel in Las Vegas in his magic act walks on water, but he's got these planks that are transparent. How did Jesus walk on water?
Yeah. And was it quantum?
Right. Well, so when we talk about the terms quantum, we have to understand what that definite means.
Right.
So quantum is minute, subatomic particles, right? In fact, Annette Capps, and I think even her dad, Charles Tapp, before he went to go with the Lord, did a wonderful training and teaching on quantum physics in the Bible. But the Bible, you could say accurately, it's life, it's light, it's quantum physics. Because everything that Jesus did, from walking through a room, through the wall, to walking on water, to calming the storm, to taking 2 fishes and 5 loaves and feeding over 5,000 people, these are all realms.
Or being raised from the dead.
Or being raised from the dead.
Yeah.
All go beyond physical matter. Goes beyond physical senses. So what happens now is Christians will read these stories in the Bible, and they say they believe them, but they don't have a conscious awareness and understanding of what that means. They don't really know it from a point of experience. We have the scientific world look at these things and say, we can see under a microscope all these things that are happening with energy and frequency and molecules, and we can look at the DNA, and we can look at the chromosomes and see what's going on with the blood cells, and we can look at epigenetics, which is the gene expression based on external and internal environment. I told you we were going to go deep, right? So get your gargle on and put your little rubber duck on, because this is some deep stuff. When we're talking about that, that's where the scientists are talking, trying to explain a God that they had never experienced themselves.
Ooh, wow.
Right? They've never had a personal experience with him.
Yeah.
Now, when you get that experience with him, if you do not educate yourself, then you're going to just conceptualize and even be offended when science comes in and says, hey, this is what's happening under the microscope.
Mm-hmm.
This is how these things are done. So when people say, I don't know if I can believe the Bible where Jesus fed over 5,000 people with two fishes and 5 loaves and all these things. Well, a scientist says, of course he did that. I understand how he did that. It's by moving around physical matter.
Now, do you think that there's a disconnect of people understanding that this is why it says in the Bible that we can do all things as Jesus did?
There's a huge disconnect because, the challenge with Christianity today and Christians is they'll quote all these things and they say they believe them and they believe that they believe them, but they really don't believe them.
Oh, watch out.
Right? Because the reason, right? The whole reason why is because that they believe that they would be doing them.
Right.
There's not a lot of evidence in Christians' lives today that support
Yeah.
what they say that they believe.
Yeah.
So yes, there's a huge disconnect. And what's happened over the years and centuries and decades is we start using these terminology, these words, these stories, and they're nothing more than cartoons.
Mm.
They're nothing more than words that lose and stories that lose its authentic power.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the ministry of Jesus, it wasn't because he was the Son of God, because if he was doing those as the Son of God in his divinity form, he would have never said, the things that I do, you're going to do, and greater things are you going to do, right? He was talking as the Son of Man.
Yeah.
He understood the dynamics of quantum physics, how it operated from a molecular structure. That's why he had no fear.
But it also says in the Bible, "For my people will perish for the lack of knowledge."
That's exactly why people are getting in trouble.
Yeah.
It's because that lack of knowledge, they won't let knowledge come in.
Right.
Because all of a sudden now you start talking about things that Christians are uncomfortable with.
Well, because they were brought up that way. We talked about that, the fear of the Lord, the fear. The fear, I think, takes over, being afraid, not understanding that the wisdom of God, of love, will allow us to do all these things.
Exactly. So when we're not New Testament taught, but we operate on religious programming, then we become very offended about anything that challenges those beliefs.
Yeah.
So we have to now reshift ourselves and start looking at this from a perspective of understanding that whether you're talking about God from a scientific way or you're talking about him from a biblical way, at the end of the day,
They're both.
you're at the same place.
Right.
You're talking about God,
Yeah.
right? And what happens is people start arguing. It's like two firemen at a burning building arguing who set the fire while the building is burning down.
Yeah.
Go get the people out of the fire, bring them out of the building,
Yeah.
then decide and discuss who started the cotton picket thing in the first place, right? So people are dying
Yeah.
and suffering, and we're arguing about this, that, and the other.
Yeah. It's really sad sometimes, I have a big heart for people, and you know this. I would do anything for anybody, but when I see people really hurting themselves by the lack of, really not knowing what's happening or the understanding, really makes me sad.
Yeah. It was like uh, our son Roman. One time I said, "Hey, I want you to read this book," and it was a financial book. And he says, "You want me to read all of that?" I said, "Yes, I do." So then a few months later, our daughter Marina was over, and she says, "Hey, did you actually read that big book that dad gave you?" He says, "No, man, I just read where he underlined stuff. He put it in yellow. Guess I wasn't going to read the whole thing."
Well, it's funny because I remember one year you gave all the kids books, and inside the book was money, and they didn't even know it until somebody, like, opened up the book and realized that there was money inside.
Right. And the moral of the story was reading always pays good dividends.
Yes, always, always.
So going back to this whole area of quantum physics and quantum mechanics and quantum entanglement and epigenetics, these are all words that we don't need to be afraid of.
Hmm.
We
Like
need to come into a point of
not
understanding.
not being afraid of God.
Right. Exactly.
It's wisdom.
Yeah. Now, if anybody that is studying quantum physics that has never experienced Jesus Christ in their heart, if you really want to go into deep diving about quantum physics, first of all, you ask him in your heart.
Yeah.
Then you get into his word, because you'll find from Genesis to Revelation, it's filled with quantum physics quantum mechanics, the quantum field, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
Whatever vernacular they use, they'll find, wow, this is exactly how the miracles happen. In fact, from a point of science, it's easier to believe in the miracles Jesus did than from somebody that has no education or understanding and trying to believe it by faith,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
They're like, I'm going to try to believe that Jesus did all these things. And you ask, well, how did he do it? I don't know. You're not supposed to understand those things. Just believe.
When John the Baptist baptized Jesus, right? And I remember every time I see that, when he came back up and he's seen like this light, right? And this is Jesus,
Yeah.
right? I think about that and I'm like, what was it? What was the difference of him being before being baptized and the after effect of being baptized? Was there an energy shift?
Now we're talking about his physical existence on the planet,
Right.
his physical body. So everything is affected. Basically, if we took all physical matter and brought it all down, you would find energy, frequency, and vibration.
Mm-hmm.
Just like if you took water, that's one state of vibration. You put it in the freezer, it becomes ice. The same element, but at a different frequency.
Right.
Then you take that ice cube and you put it in a boiling pan and it becomes steam. It's the same element, but a different frequency and energy. So everything in this life,
I'm sorry, I'm just thinking. Most people would say, well, it's because you put it in in a freezer, right? Or you put it over the stove, but they don't realize that it's changing the frequency of the same thing,
exactly,
right?
right? It's amazing when you start really studying this, your perception of God increases and expands. It begins to make you realize the depth of God and his awesomeness, going back to the episode when we did Fear of the Lord, that awesomeness of God, it's like overwhelming.
Yeah.
It blows your mind,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And now we even go back into New Testament times now, where because Jesus redeemed us from the curse of the law, he was the one that brought us back to the point of dominion. So the New Testament believer today is designed to have dominion on this physical earth, exactly like Adam had. Just like Adam had.
Wow.
But that doesn't happen because believers don't have a dominion awareness or dominion consciousness.
Mm.
So when people say, oh, I'm going to pray to God for healing, or I'm going to pray for God for this, that, and the other, God already did that for us. And people say, well, if he did it for us, how come we don't have it? Because you're not enforcing it.
It comes back to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It goes right back to us and saying, you're the one that's supposed to have the dominion here. You're the one that is the executor of my will on this planet.
Right.
But most people run and are afraid of the devil.
Yeah.
Because they don't understand that we have dominion on this earth. And that's why Jesus was able to operate in the areas of miracles that he did, because he had dominion at that plane or that area of understanding.
So you're saying that if anybody would have that dominion of what Jesus had,
That awareness, the consciousness.
the awareness, the consciousness, the understanding of how everything works, we'd be able to do everything he could.
Either Jesus was telling the truth when he said all things are possible to him that believes, or he wasn't.
Wow.
The key factor is, do you believe that?
Wholeheartedly.
Wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Do you believe that?
Yeah.
Now, we're going to do an episode, because I just thought about this, about faith and belief. And really because that's another major subject that so many people struggle with. It's an area that has brought a lot of confusion and division within the church. So we're definitely going to do that.
Absolutely.
Now, I know we're running out of time here, but I wanted us to take this time to really help our viewing audience to understand that we have much more power than we realize.
Absolutely.
When we begin to understand quantum physics, now your faith is really able to get a stronger foothold and saying, yes, this is real.
Yeah.
This is all reality.
Yeah. But not only just quantum physics, but how Jesus really walked on earth. Well,
Yeah.
how he really did things,
Yeah.
and how he did it and what was behind that allowed him to create all these miracles.
Well, the Bible tells us that Jesus Christ is the same today, yesterday, and forever. He
Mhm.
doesn't change.
Right.
So we are his body on this earth, carrying out his ministry. So how could it be any different than what he did?
Yep.
We're the ones that now are supposed to be laying hands on the sick and having them recover. We're the ones that are supposed to be at the area of having dominion on this physical plane in earth, because that's what he did. So if we're his body, that's what we should be doing.
I think it's time for a revival.
I think that's a good time for a revival. Hey, listen, everyone, it's been such a honor to be able to spend this time and deep dive with you on these subjects. And it's very important to realize that when we come to an approach of the Bible and its understanding, we want to make sure that it is scripturally grounded.
Absolutely.
Right? And also, we want to make sure that we are being open-minded to say, maybe some of my theology may not have been correct. Maybe there is more to this than I currently understand. When we come with that mindset, then all of a sudden now we start wanting to debate and argue and criticize. And now we start saying, hey, let's expand our learning and understanding. Because like you said, in the scripture, my people perish because of a lack of knowledge. Hey, it was great seeing you. We'll see you next time. I'm your host, Don Boyer.
And I'm Melinda Boyer.
See you next time.
Bye for now.